Culture. Culture is the world. Culture is the notion. Culture is something which we have to take in account when we come to the Middle East. Middle East is a region in the world which is totally different from the culture of this country, the United States of America. Just to show you, we see this map, and we see every state with one color, as if each and every one of these states is one nation, one people, united, functions together so nicely, so peacefully. This is the impression which we get from this map. This map is, in the best case, false presentation. Because when we go to the Middle East, when we see those countries of the Middle East, this is much more accurate, for example, to show what Iraq is. This is the real map of Iraq. Because this mosaic of parts are actually the tribes of Iraq. And tribalism is the cornerstone of culture in the Middle East. This thing is unheard of in this country, especially during the last 250 years, since those tribes were more or less exterminated in a way or another. In the Middle East, tribalism is not only alive and kicking, tribalism is alive and killing. And this is what we see in bloodbaths like Iraq. The same thing we see in other bloodbaths like Syria, fragmented as it is, to Kurds in this part, Druze in this part, Alawis in this part, Muslims who hate, in this part who hate Muslims, who share nothing with the others in the country. And there is some kind of impression that there is a Syrian people. How do you say in English in one word? Forget about it. There is no such a people. There are some ethnic groups which share nothing but the hatred to the regime. This is the only thing which unites the Muslims and the Christians and the Druze against the Alawis who took over, and the Alawis actually are infidels and idol worshippers who, according to Islam, have the choice between converting to Islam or to be shortened by head. And the bloodbath which we see in Syria today is mainly because those Alawis do not want only to stay in power, they want to stay with their heads connected to their shoulders. So it's either you kill or you get killed. One Turkish president, Süleyman Demirel, once he described the Middle East as a very big feast. Everybody takes part in a very good feast, but everybody has the choice between being on the chair or being on the plate. And this is actually the Middle East. Welcome to the culture of the Middle East. Libya, another mayhem. Afghanistan, which, as much as I heard, this country is retrieving from Afghanistan in the near future. Just look at the map of this swarm. This is in Hebrew, but the country is the same. The different colors are different ethnic groups: Kyrgyzs, Turkmenis, Nuristanis, Pamiris, Pashtunis, Tajikis, Hazaris, Uzbekis, Aymakis, Baluchis, and some others. They don't have anything in common. Nothing. No language, no common language, different habits, different mindset, different clothing, different everything. And who with the right mind can expect that one day will come and they will sit around one fire and sing Kumbaya together? It never happened, it does not happen, and according to my humble assessment, it will not happen even in the foreseeable future, especially after the American retrieval of this place. Their ability to cooperate is very limited. So instead of doing the right thing, America and other nations which occupied this country 12 years ago almost did not do the only thing which would save this country or the people of this country, which is to divide it to ethnic groups, just like what happened with the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, all those artificial states which divided themselves to ethnic states like Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Georgia, Armenia, Belarus, Ukraine. Okay, this was ex-Soviet Union, Croatia, Serbia, Kosovo in the Yugoslavian president, and not to mention the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic, all the ruins of Czechoslovakia, which divided itself in a civilized way. So, if the Czechs and the Slovaks decided to divide themselves, what caused people to think that the Aymakis and the Baluchis can be more cozy with each other than the Serbians and the Croatians in former Yugoslavia? Ethnicity is alive and kicking, and in the Afghani case, it's alive and killing. And this is the source of atrocities in the Middle East, which we see until this very day. When we come to the Palestinian problem, or how to solve the problem in the Israelis and the Palestinians, the question now is what path to take. The path of these failing states like Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, or to take the path of other states in the Middle East which are stable, and I mean the Gulf Emirates. Let me show you what I mean by this. If you go back to the map of the Middle East, we find only one group which is stable. And I'm talking about this group. Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, which are Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, 7 of them, totally independent from each other, yet united like the European Union on some issues. It's not like Florida, Oklahoma, and New Jersey. It's like Germany, France, and Holland. United for the currency, for example, for standards of production. This is the United Arab Emirates. Independent state, sovereign states, which combine their security issues and foreign policy. This is the United Arab Emirates, means they are independent from each other. They don't step on each other's toes. So these 9 states, Kuwait, Qatar, and the 7 Arab Emirates, and I exclude Bahrain. These countries are stable because of one single reason. The fact that each of them is one single tribe. It's not the oil. Dubai has no oil. And Dubai is a very rich country to a degree that Dubai runs the harbors of the United States of America. They know what business are. They know how to manage big things like American harbors, because they invested their time not in fighting each other like other tribes, but to promoting their own economy and management, mainly because they don't have to fight others, because they are a single tribe which controls Dubai. And so forth, all these Emirates. Al-Sabah in Kuwait, Al-Thani in Qatar, Al-Nihyan in Abu Dhabi, and so forth. Every one of them, one single tribe. The oil of Iraq doesn't contribute to the stability. The oil of Libya, the same. The oil of Yemen, the same. The energy which Egypt produces, the same. So if you go to Africa and Nigeria, another oil-producing country, the oil doesn't contribute to stability in any of those countries. These countries are stable only because the society is homogeneous. On this you can build a stable political system, and on this you can build skyscrapers with helicopter pads, because they don't like to go to the airport for an hour because of the traffic jams. So this is the Emirates. Stable from the sociological point of view, stable from political point of view, stable from the, or flourishing from the economic point of view. Iraq is fragmented from the sociological point of view because of those tribes. The government doesn't function, and the economy does not get up from the ruins of the war of 2003. And this is the name of the game, culture of the Middle East. Tribalism is alive and killed. When we go now to the Palestinian-Israeli problem, which path should we take? The path of the failing states, which are made of conglomerates, of ethnic groups, of tribes, sects, and religions, or to take the other route of the Middle East, which is stable states based on homogeneous societies? I think that the answer is very clear. We should go on the path of the one homogeneous society. However, when we come to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, there are some solutions which people talk about. One of them is one-state solution. Means Israel and the Palestinians should share the same country, and the same arrangements which are between the Jews in Israel and the 20% of Arabs who are citizens in Israel should be implemented also on the Palestinian Authority, another 2.5 million Palestinians, and they should become citizens of the State of Israel, just like the other Palestinians who found themselves inside Israel since 1948, were given Israeli citizenship. They live in a democratic state. They don't burst to the streets to demonstrate against the countries. On the contrary, against Israel. And on the contrary, they live peacefully with the Jews. Half of my students are Israeli Arabs. I would say that the state is not their dream, but definitely they prefer to live in Israel rather than living in any other alternative in the Middle East. This one-state solution is a problem from the demographic point of view. We Jews would like to live in a country of Jews, just like French who like to live in a French country. Of course, little by little there is another immigration, but people in Norway want to live in a Norwegian country, people in Italy want to live in Italian country. So we Jews have the same right of any nation in the world to live in our own nation state, nation of the Jews. Okay, we have all kinds of debates, how Jewish it should be. we should preserve Shabbat, or Kashrut, or other things, but this is another story. Yet, a state for the Jews, just like a state for the Italians, and the Romanians, and any other nation in the world. So, a one-state solution is no option, because it will be binational and with birthright of Arabs. We are afraid as Jews that we will be a minority in 20 or 30 years, while we do think that we have the right to a state of ours. The second solution which you can see, which people talk about, is the two-state solution. Two-state solution means to divide the land of Israel between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River, to divide it to two states. And I'm talking about, there were all kinds of maps which were drawn through history. For example, the partition plan, which was drawn by the United Nations. The blue is for the Jews, the brown is for the Arabs, and this is the partition plan which was drawn by the United Nations. By the way, if you can read what it says, is that it's not Palestinian state, if you can see Arab state and Jewish state. See here? Arab state and Jewish state. In 1947, the word Palestinian was not in the air. People didn't talk about Palestinians. They were unknown or not recognized. The Palestinian issue came to the stage of public discourse like 20 years or 30 years later. But in 1947, the United Nations decided to an Arab state, not Palestinian, and this wording of the plan is very important, because those Palestinians, as you might know, there is not even one book on one newspaper which mentions the Palestinian people before 1920. You cannot find it in any place in the world. So this is a new invention, just like Jordanian people, because Jordan was founded in the early 20s, just like Syria, just like Lebanon. These are all states which were marked by the colonialism after the First World War. So the Palestinian people was not there yet. West Bank is this area, more or less. A little smaller, but this is West Bank, not including Jerusalem. Jerusalem today is in Israel. The problem is that if we have a Palestinian state in the West Bank, it means a threat on all the space of Israel. All the space. Because distances in Israel are very small. You can take by car from the north point of Israel to the south, it will take you some 4 hours. No more. The whole state of Israel is some 4 hours, or 5 hours, depends on the traffic. To cause just like the width, more or less maybe diagonally of the peninsula, of the Florida Peninsula. This is the whole state. So since those Palestinians already proved, they know very well how to launch missiles from the Gaza Strip, which is here, and those projectiles reach Tel Aviv. So definitely missiles which will be launched from the West Bank will reach any point in the state of Israel. So actually Israel is on a suicide course if it decides to have another Palestinian state inside this country, overlooking Israel as it is. Another solution which you can see in the air is what I call the Palestinian Emirates and the formerly known as the 8-state solution. This solution actually talks about establishing 8 states, 8 Palestinian states, 8 Arab states, which will be homogeneous, just like the Arab Emirates in the Gulf. First of all, Gaza, which is not in this map, it's more or less where the end is already a state since June 2007. I'm talking about 5.5 years of an entity with a government, with legislative body, with judicial system, with police, with an army, with military industry, with its own economy, and borders, of course, recognized by Israel, by the Egyptians, and already leaders of the world, especially the Arab world, are visiting this place and relating to Gaza as a state. And something which looks like a state, walks like a state, and quacks like a state, is a state, whether it declared statehood and independence or not. So Gaza should be dealt with as a state. Now we need some 7 more states. From the north, Jenin, based on the cities on the West Bank. Jenin, Tulkarem, Kalkilia, Nablus, Ramallah, Jericho, and the Arab part of Hebron. Another map which shows these states, this more or less the borders of the cities, and this is again a provisional state, map, a provisional map. It doesn't have to be exactly the borders which are marked here, could be wider, but the principle on which this map is drawn is that those Arab states are based on the cities, while the rural areas will forever be kept by Israel in order to make sure that those hills do not turn into Hamas hills or Hezbollah mountains, because they will never turn into Beverly Hills. Okay? And Israel should offer Israeli citizenship to the villagers in these villages. From the demography point of view, this is not a threat, because these cities are some more or less 90% of the Arab population in the West Bank. And thus, 90% of the Arabs in the West Bank will be free from Israeli occupation. They will have their own states, they will have their own sovereignty, citizenship, and whatever a citizen enjoys in his own state. Those villagers will have the choice between being Israeli citizens or not. Just like the Arabs in Jerusalem, who were given this choice some 46 years ago, 45 years ago, when Jerusalem was liberated from the Jordanian occupation. And I don't know if you know, but recently, thousands of them are asking Israeli citizenship after they have for 45 years Israeli residency. Because as long as they are residents, they can vote for the municipality, but not for the Knesset, not for the parliament. Because they are not citizens, they are residents. But now, when they hear all kinds of possibilities that a Palestinian state will be in the West Bank, they do not want to be part of this state, because they are afraid that this state might turn into Hamas state, and they know the history. In 2006, in January 2006, Hamas took over the majority of the seats of the Legislative Council of the Palestinian Authority, and so Hamas definitely can do it again and become the master of the Palestinian state. Another occasion was in June 2007, when Hamas took Gaza over in a bloodbath, They murdered some 200 policemen who belonged to the Palestinian Authority. Some of them they shot in the head, some of them they shot in the knees, very aching and very problematic, and some of them who ran away to a skyscraper in Gaza, they threw them to the street. Maybe on the way they will have wings. Apparently they did not have, and believe me, somebody who was thrown from the top floor of a skyscraper, his life expectancy is rather short. And this is what happened to them when they met Mother Round. So this is, by the way, how a Palestinian people acts. So those in Jerusalem do not want to become part of such a state which might turn into another Hamastan because they want to live normal life. So now they are lining up near the Israeli Ministry of Interior in order to apply to become citizens of the state rather than residents. So they know something which others try to ignore. So this is when Israel offers citizenship to Arabs, eventually they take it. You know what? How many Arabs in the Arab world would take American citizenship if they are offered such a thing? What percentage of them will take American citizenship? Okay? Donald Rumsfeld, prior to the war in Iraq in 2003, somebody showed him a clip of Turkish demonstrators against the war, against the forthcoming war. It was early March 2003. And they were marching in the streets with green flags of the Islam, green flags. So when Donald Rumsfeld saw this, he said, well, how many of them would exchange the green flags to green cards? Okay? Everybody knows the answer. So this is why I'm not afraid of human rights abuse if Israel offers citizenship to the villagers in the rural areas. They will have no problem to become Israeli citizens if they only want. This plan of the Palestinian Emirates is actually bridging between the Israeli demographic fears or concerns, and we do have such, and most of the Arabs in the West Bank yearning to have independence and not to have an Israeli occupation because they will be independent in those Emirates. And on the other side is the Israeli security by keeping the rural areas. It is not a perfect plan, but any other plan is less perfect than this. Just, you know, what Churchill said about democracy. Democracy is a very bad system, but every other system is worse. And he knew what he's talking about. He was not such an easy man to deal with as those who lived in Britain of those days know. But definitely, democracy is not a perfect system, but any other system is much worse. This is the same thing with this. It's not perfect. It has to be engineered. I'm the architect, but engineering should be what to do with water, how to deal with sewage, how to deal with roads, how to deal with airport. Where is the airport? Okay, there are technical issues which should be dealt with. But the idea should be this, according to my humble view. And here I must say, Frank Pomeranz invested who knows how many hours. I really do not know how many hundreds of hours in order to establish a website which will expand this plan. PalestinianEmirates.com, please read it. And Frank Pomeranz also pays for this, for the host of this website. Thank you, Frank, for doing this. To sum up, culture should be the basis of any solution between Israel and the Palestinians. Those states actually reflects the culture, because every one of them is tribal group, either one tribe or some tribes which live together for centuries with peace. If you say Nablus, which is here, is a state, will be, inshallah, a state of 3 tribes, Al-Masri, Tukan, and Shakar, which are the 3 leading tribes of Nablus. Ramallah is the state for the Barghoutis, who are the leading tribe of Ramallah. Jericho is the state, or the emirate, for the Arikats. This is the name of the Arikat, is the name of the tribe, leading tribe in Jericho. And Hebron, another tribal society headed by the Jabri clan, the Jabri tribe, and with other tribes like Abu Snena, Natche, Kawasmi, and Tamimi. Definitely 5 tribes who live in peace with each other. They have court to deal with all the disputes between people, and everybody obeys this court, civil court of tribes. They know very well how to deal with each other, and they have a king or a leader with whom I meet. He has no problem meeting with Israelis. He has nothing against Israelis. He just wants his own state. Of course, he cannot show that he betrayed the Arab world. He always said, yes, if you force it on me, I will do it. Means to keep his face, or maybe also to keep his head connected to his shoulders, because he will be murdered by those who will lose their jobs if he creates a state on the ruins of the Palestinian Authority, which never succeeded to unify all those so-called Palestinians to be one people, just like Syria failed in unifying the Kurds and the Arabs and the Alawis and the Druze and all these groups under the aegis of an illegitimate president or ruler. Just like there is no Iraqi people, just like there is no Afghani people, this is what the claim is, that there is no Palestinian people which can have one consolidated state as the United States of America. Those tribes are still alive, those tribes are still not unified, just like Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Sudan, which divided itself, Libya, and so forth. This is the culture of the Middle East. Every political solution should take the culture as its basis and should walk along the cultural lines of the Middle East. Otherwise, you get mayhems like Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Libya, Yemen, and Afghanistan. This is when you try to swim against the current. You have to swim along the current, with the current. So you have stable states like Kuwait, like Qatar, like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, and all these Emirates. Palestinian Emirates.com. One thing I must tell you from my own experience, I spent 25 years in the Israeli intelligence, and we have excellent cooperation with agencies in this country, various agencies. I had a very close and very intimate cooperation with one of the agencies in this country. And let me tell you very frankly, in the end of the day, the cooperation on professional level between Israel and the United States of America and the agencies which cooperate with the parallel Israeli agencies is usually, in most cases, regardless of who the president is and what side of the aisle he is from. And I'm saying in total responsibility to what I say, because I was there for 25 years. Believe me, in the end of the day, the professional men with whom I sit shoulder to shoulder and we walk together, believe together on subjects which are connected to the security of the United States of America and Israel together, because they are the same threats. We don't ask any permission, neither from the Israeli Prime Minister, not from the American President, because the language between us is so fluent and we share almost, everything we share. Expertise, knowledge, know-how, everything. And for us, the cooperation is regardless of who is there, and we couldn't care less. And I'm telling you, this is the nature of cooperation between this country and Israel. You know what? I suspect that the cooperation, general cooperation, not about specific arenas like Iraq, even between agencies of this country and the British agencies, is less intimate than the cooperation between Israel, the Israeli agencies and these countries. And I'm not sitting when they sit with the British, but I do have the impression that this is the situation. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think that I'm correct by saying this. So this is what concerns me. What at the end of the day, the two countries cooperate on, and believe me, it is regardless, in most cases, than what happens between Jerusalem and Washington, D.C. Of course, I am aware of some kinds of tensions, which might be sometimes bad language, bad body language, problems between people who like each other or dislike each other. I know it all, and I'm aware of it. And sometimes they like it more, sometimes they like it less, but in the end of the day, the cooperation is very intimate, usually regardless of who is in the Prime Minister's office and who is in the White House. Yes, sir.
I have a question about this airplanes, the F-16s and the 218 tanks. How do you call that cooperation?
The F-16 and the tanks.
What, to Egypt?
Which was supplied by the United States to Egypt.
Yeah.
I also raised the brow when I saw this, but when I saw the details, I more or less understood. First of all, the contract to supply these things were signed in the days of Mubarak, before he was ousted, exactly 2 years ago. So, contract should be implemented. And this country, which believes in contracts, and that contracts should be implemented, I think showed a good sign to Egypt that you sign the contract, peace contract with Israel, you should also better act according to this. Because if the United States did not supply these weapons to Egypt, as dangerous as these weapons can be to Israel, this is a signal to the Egyptians that contracts are flexible. And when the situation changes, you can change the contract retrospectively. This is not a good message, because the Egyptians could do the same thing to the peace agreement with Israel, for example. So this is important thing to implement contracts as they were signed. Secondly, it's also a matter of jobs in this country. And it's important, I believe, that if a producer has some thousands of jobs to produce weapons, and what can we do? Part of the American industry and jobs is supplying weapons to Egypt. Okay, what will be the result of cancellation of such a contract to the jobs in this country? And your president knows how to count jobs, and he is also responsible for employment in this country inter alia. Okay, so this also could be a consideration. And but for me, the last consideration is that how dangerous those weapons supplied to Egypt are to the peace agreement with Israel. This This is what concerns me. I don't know how many hundreds of F-16 the Americans have already. The Egyptians have already. I'm not so sure that addition of 16 additional ones will change the balance of power between Israel and Egypt. Okay? If they have already 250, 16 additional ones is not such a significant addition. And of course, thanks the same thing. What matters more is the peace agreement with Israel rather than these airplanes and tanks. So you have to put them in context and to see the balance between Israel and Egypt when it comes to these weapons. And also, we have to see how immediate are the threats on the peace agreement. Believe me, the Egyptians, the last thing which they need now is a war with Israel. They don't have income from the tourism because tourism vanished. They don't have income from investments because most of the investments vanished since the last 2 years. The income which they had from the gas which was sent to Israel and Jordan by the pipeline through Sinai vanished. All this income because the Bedouins blew up this pipeline for 14 times, I think. 14 times. You know why? Because the Egyptians have no money to pay the protection money in order to protect this pipeline. So the Egyptians lost the income from these pipelines as well. The only source, the almost only source for foreign currency for Egypt is the fees which they collect from the ships which cross the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal will stop to be any passage if there is some kind of deterioration in the relations between Israel and Egypt, because no insurance company will allow ships to go through the canal if there is no peace between Israel and Egypt, because so far during the history, after the 1956 war, the canal was blocked for months. And after the 67 war between Israel and Egypt, the canal was blocked for 7 years with ships inside. So if the situation of peace will be deteriorated by all kinds of cancellation or reduction of peace with Israel, the Egyptians will go bankrupt in no time because they will lose almost the last source of foreign currency, which is the Suez Canal. So when you put the tanks and the airplanes into this context, I think that the American decision does not put in danger or does not put Israel in much bigger danger than it is anyway. And since the Egyptians anyway will go bankrupt because of the high subsidies to food, the Israelis do not see such a big threat from the south, from Egypt, and also not from the north, from Syria, which is falling apart. This is why, by the way, the elections in Israel had such a result that the Likud party, which based its propaganda on the threats about Israel, the Israelis didn't buy it. And the Likud lost 25% of its power because the Israelis do not see any threat, neither from Egypt nor from Syria. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I'm curious about, and I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican, I'm an American. I don't identify with any party, I identify with what's good for my country. The fact that our sitting president can justify however many jobs are created by the development of these weapons that are probably now going to be used against our own people sooner or later is no real consolation for me. I'm curious about, I've been told recently by a good friend of mine who happens to be Jewish that a large percentage of American Jews or Americans of Jewish heritage are liberal Democrats and voted or would vote for the Democratic ticket no matter what. And in light of the fact that it would appear that our current administration is not all that friendly to Israel, I wonder what the general populace in Israel, what they feel, what they think about their people in this country going in that direction.
A good question. We Israelis understand that American Jews vote primarily according to American considerations. They are citizens in this country, and the welfare of this country is their first on the ladder of priorities. Maybe some would put Israel above America. I think that most Jewish Americans or American Jewish people do put America above the Israel considerations, mainly because Israel somehow survives in the Middle East. In spite of the wars, in spite of the Arabs, in spite of the hatred, in spite of everything, Israel makes it, you know, already 65 years. And what we see today around Israel is a mayhem, bloodbath, which Arabs kill each other. So Israel definitely does not need our so deep concern. So if American Jews prefer American considerations like employment, like healthcare, and everything which connected to the American arena, I don't blame them. Really, I don't blame them, because they are citizens of this country. And you know, in our heritage, in Pirkei Avot, the chapters of our sages would say, "Veheve mitpalel b'shloma shel malchut." Pray, and it's ordered for the Jews. Pray for the peace of the kingdom in which you live. Jews are ordered to pray for the peace of every state which they are living, because with the peace of this state, they will have peace. And if this state gets into war, they will live in a war. So this is why people in this country, if you go to a synagogue, every synagogue on Shabbat, you will hear very clearly the prayer for the state of Israel and the prayer for the state of America. Whether in English or in Hebrew, never mind. But the rabbi stands in front of the people, and in many synagogues, you have an Israeli flag on one side and the American flag on the other side, and this is not split loyalty. This is loyalty to both, together, with no contradiction. People do not see any contradiction between the Israeli flag and the American flag. Because we are Jews, this is Israel, we are Americans, this is American flag. So if they vote to American president or Congress or whatever, according to American criteria and considerations, this is according to Pirkei Avot. ומתפלל, we pray to the welfare or the good being or well-being of the country which you live in. So if you think that this candidate, whether Democrat or Republican, is the best for the country, vote for him. Because this is the peace or good welfare or good being or well-being of the country which you live in.
I do understand that, because Christians are taught the same thing. Second question I have is, what can you tell us based on your history with the Israeli intelligence folks? What can you tell us about John Brennan and what he might mean if he is appointed to head the CIA?
Look, I left the Israeli intelligence some 18 years ago. 18 years ago. And this is, in Israel, this is forever. Like, Netzach, how do you say Netzach? Forever. Eternity. This is eternity.
A long time.
Those who are there today were not born when I left. Yes, this is 18 years. There are 18 years, there were no kids. So, really, I don't remember this man in particular. I don't know what he was before. I never had anything to do with him. You know what, frankly, my cooperation was with the NSA. He was never in the NSA, so I don't remember him as some. I don't remember him from the NSA. I don't think he was there.
I got a question on this side.
Mr. Swire. Colonel Swire.
Colonel Doctor,
Richard Swire.
this is a wonder, has any...
Please stand up, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you about your eight-state solution. Has there been any traction in the Knesset? Anybody who's embraced this? Any
Yes.
party
Yes.
who's embraced this? And what is your prediction on perhaps this being implemented, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I tried to sell this idea to many people. Many people understand it. But if you are familiar with the Israeli political arena, there is one man who decides almost about everything. This is Netanyahu, or the prime minister, because this is how the system works. So everybody looks up to see if Netanyahu would agree, and according to this, he shapes his idea. I sat with his advisor, Yaakov Amidro, about this plan, and he immediately said, he understood it very, very easily because he was in intelligence and understood it very quickly. So he asked me, how do I sell it to the Americans? I said, Yaakov, what do you mean? The Americans are clueless. The Americans will buy anything which works. And this is the only thing which can work. They know if something works, it works, and so they buy it. They don't have any other solution because their solution to keep, for example, Iraq or Afghanistan as one consolidated state, and this actually what they did is resuscitating dead body politic, like Iraq and Afghanistan. And this is what it's going to be. Iran took Iraq, Iran will take Afghanistan. Guys, I don't know if people are aware of it. After America sacrificed 4,000 of its precious soldiers on the altar of Iraq, after America poured $1 trillion, thousands of billions on Iraq in order to stabilize this state. This state today is manipulated totally by Iran. Iran is operating Iraq after the Americans liberated Iraq from the dictator, Saddam, 10 years ago. So, was this investment good investment? It's a total loss. And Afghanistan the same. Now I read that there are already preparations to pull out from Afghanistan eventually. The Iranians cannot wait. They will take this country not even one shot. They will bribe some, they will intimidate others, and they will get rid of others. This is how they take countries like already Kuwait had a discussion whether to join Iran peacefully or not. Because the Kuwaitis understand that if they will be taken by Iran in a way or another, or hegemonized by Iran in a way or another, the world will not come again to save them. After the world came in 1991 to save them from the Iraqi wars. When they see the leadership of the world in this country, when they see Europe sinking into economic problems, Greece, Italy, France, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, the euro is in danger. The Europeans don't need the wars this time. So when the Kuwaitis are looking at the Western world, they prefer to join the Iranians, or at least part of them, rather than resisting because they don't see anybody comes again to save them. So, you know, if you can beat them, join them. So this is what happens with Iran. So,
Time for one more question.
yes, lady.
The picture that you paint of Afghanistan with the tribes and the fact that we are leaving, how do you see the Taliban play in that arena?
The Taliban know how to control people. They just put a crystal near their heads and this is how they control, because this is the Middle East. The solution should have been to divide Afghanistan to 11 ethnic states. Every state, homogeneous, more or less, can live by itself. And high fences, as you know, make good neighbors. Instead of keeping them together, they fight each other constantly. The Taliban know how to infiltrate into the cracks between groups, and just like what Iran did in Iraq. Iran understood that the Iraqi people are divided, so it succeeded to infiltrate into those cracks. And this is how the Iranians are doing everything. So this is, I think, the mistake. The mistake was not to invade Iraq and Afghanistan. This was compulsory, to get rid of Saddam on one side and to get rid of Bin Laden and Mullah Omar in Afghanistan. But the question is what to do the morning after. The morning after should have been to divide these states to homogeneous entities, which will be peaceful, or the chances that will be peaceful within themselves and with others, much bigger than the chances that will be peaceful when they are all merged together and step on each other's toes. So definitely this was the mistake. Last one, maybe.
I'm curious, what's the reaction of the Arabs to this, what I think I've heard them use, the Cantonization statement? Does that apply here? Would they see that
They understand it before everybody else. And they know that this is the only solution which will give them stability and to us peace and to them prosperity as well. The king of Hebron already is ready to do this yesterday. No, even the day before. So the only question is how Israel will do it and how Israel will sell it to the Americans. If Israel will take some professors, and I don't push myself into DC, although I once did it there, they can take others who will understand this idea very well. I can explain it to everybody, and it's very common to anybody who understands the culture of the Middle East to go to DC, to Paris, to London, to wherever we have to convince people that this is the only solution which can survive, this is the only solution which is based on sociology. This is why this solution should be implemented. It takes time, it takes effort, some tickets or flights, and believe me, the Israeli government does it very, very cheap. It sends its officials, including myself, to all kinds of places. I'm not an official, but sometimes they use me to go to other countries like Thailand recently. They put us in coach with no mileage. Yes, ma'am.
How will these autonomous
States
be underwritten? Who will provide their infrastructure, their roads, their electricity,
Israel.
schools?
If they behave nicely, why not? Israel will give, why not?
Better than war.
Better, sure.
And cheaper.
And cheaper.
So your proposal is that Israel will underwrite all of the expenses of their communities and they will reside in sovereignty.
Do you know what's the difference between an architect and an engineer? An architect gives the idea. Then comes the engineer and deals with the details. How to create such an open space without the danger that the ceiling will fall on people's head. Okay, so he takes care of the concrete and the iron. Architect doesn't deal with these issues. I deal with the architecture. Then we take somebody who engineers water supply, another one who engineers sewage problems, another one who engineers roads, another one who engineers health system and everything. Those engineers will sit together and work on the details so these things can work and the ceiling will not fall on people's head. This I have no idea about water supply. Okay? This is not my area of expertise.
Dr. Kedar, can I ask you to speak on Syria and Iran before we have to...
I'll do it briefly, Abby.
We can do it until about
Syria, in short, this state is falling apart. Totally. Already we have a Kurdish district in the northeast, which is Syria. This Hasaka district, the Kurdish one, is stable, functioning, and the brothers who live here in Iraq, the Kurdish, relate to this part as Western Kurdistan. This is Western Kurdistan. They already envision a Kurdistan which will include the Iraqi Kurdistan, which is here, already exists as an independent state, yet without declaration. But you know, the Kurds in Iraq, in the northern part of Iraq, to the east from Hasaka, in this part, to the east from Hasaka, they have their own government for 22 years already. They have their own legislative council. They have their own days of elections. They have their own mass media. And they have their own army. The Peshmerga, the Kurdish army in Iraq, in the Kurdistan of Iraq, is much more powerful than the Iraqi army. But the worst thing is that the Kurds have no sense of humor. And the Arabs are very much afraid of them. Really, because those Kurds will not mercy them if they mess with them. So now they already liberated Kurdistan of Syria, and now they are talking about continuing to the north to liberate Kurdistan of Turkey, and at the end of the day they will go to the east more to liberate the Kurdistan in Iran, because the British divided Kurdistan to 4 states: Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. Already in Iraq they are independent, in Syria they are already autonomous, and there are 2 more districts to take from Turkey and from Iran, and believe me, we will see it, because this is in the foreseeable future. Read my lips. So this already is a free district. The Alawis are running away from everywhere where they settled to the last 50 or 60 years. They are running away to these districts in the mountains. These are a chain of mountains, which they lived there for centuries, mainly because they were afraid of the Sunnis, who will shorten them by head because they are infidels. The Druze in the south, in the Sweda district, are talking already about renewing their almost total autonomy, which they had until 1925, when they were annexed to Syria by the French. The Damascenes never loved the Aleppians, so most probably they will be departed from each other. And the Bedouins in Deir ez-Zor in the east are anyway different culture, again culture, because they are Bedouins. They have nothing in common with people who live in cities and people who live in rural areas, in agriculture areas. They are Bedouins. Their language is close to Iraqi language. Iraq is in the east. So definitely I foresee the fragmentation of Syria to Kurdish state, Alawi state, Aleppian state, Damascene state, and Druze state. I don't know where the borders will be between those states, but definitely this will be, could be a gradual process, but it definitely will be. However, we cannot ignore the danger that weapons of mass destruction, and there are very high stockpiles of weapons of mass destruction in Syria. These weapons can find their way to organizations like Hezbollah and other terrorist, Al-Qaeda-like militias which fight on Syria. If they put their hand on these weapons, believe me, Venice, Florida will be in danger, just like Israel, Turkey, and other parts of the Middle East, because as you know, in 11 hours we can reach even Venice, Florida from the Middle East by air. This is about Syria. Iran. Windows 8 will drive me crazy. And Bill Gates will pay the price.
Go after it.
Go out.
Iran. Another conglomerate of Persians who are not even half of the population. Azeris, Kurds, Baluchis, Arabs, Turkmens. The Kurds and the Baluchis are Sunni. They are not even Shiites. So like a third of the population are Sunnis. And you know, or you might have some kind of idea about the hugs and kisses between these two parts of the hospital. So definitely they have a domestic problem with the Baluchis. They have a very vicious organization named Jundullah, means the force of Allah, or the army of Allah, or soldiers of Allah, and there's not even one day almost in Iran when there is no terrorist attack or attack of these Jundullah against army vehicles, buses, trains, and anything which moves in Iran by this militia. If Iran will be toppled, it will be from within, if not from the outside. If it will be toppled from within, it will be thanks to the Baluchis, and not thanks to anything else. Iran marches forward on its program to produce nuclear weapons. Nobody has doubt about this. The only question is how long it will take, year, 2 or 3. I have no idea, because there is much information about this, there is much misinformation, and there is much disinformation. I have absolutely no idea what the real information is, because I left the intelligence. I don't take any information which is not from open sources, otherwise I couldn't speak freely and fluently. However, Iran took, as I mentioned, took over Iraq. Kuwait is on its way to be taken by Iran. The Saudis are shaking out of fear because of what happens with Iran. The Qataris and the Emirates definitely are shaking of fear. And the Bahrain, this island, anyway, there are majority of Persians who are Shiites. They are more than sure that Iran will release them from the Sunni Arab occupation which the British arranged for them when they brought in a tribe, an Arab Sunni tribe, to control the Shi'i Persians in Bahrain. So definitely Iran is on its march to spread its control over the Gulf. And don't forget, Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia are the sweetest dream of the Iranians, because they want to renew the Shi'i Caliphate rather than the Sunni one, which took over the Islam since the mid-7th century. They are still dreaming about this, and they act according to the verse in the Quran which says, Inna Allah ma'asabirin, means Allah is with those who have patience. And they have a lot of patience. They will come. So when they accomplish their hegemony over the Gulf, they will have some almost 60% of the oil reserves of the world reserves of oil and gas. They will become an energy superpower which will be able to topple Europe in no time, only by manipulating the prices of oil. And I'm not so sure that prices of oil in this country are immune from manipulations which the Iranians might do on the market of oil and gas in the Gulf. So definitely they might control or to have big influence on the world economy if they accomplish the hegemony over the Gulf area. Israel, unlike the Arab countries, allegedly have some kind of deterrence vis-à-vis Iran. I personally do not know what Israel has, whether Israel has or not any nuclear weapons. It's not my business, it's not my business of academia, but there is some kind of sentence which finds itself in too many websites by copy and paste, that Israel has something between 200 and 300 nuclear warheads. Again, I don't know if Israel is one, but this information moves from website to website, and the Iranians know how to read from left to right. So when I look at this situation from this point of view, for Iranians, the Gulf is much more beneficial to take over than Israel, because Israel is not an oil-producing country, and the gas which Israel has under the seabed of the Mediterranean is still in theory. We don't take it yet in commercial quantities. So the cost effectiveness of attacking Israel might be rather high than to take the Gulf. So as much, according to what I understand, Iran is now about to spread its hegemony over the Gulf before it messes with Israel. Israel, therefore, if I'm correct, and again, Netanyahu doesn't call me every other day to tell me what his plans are, believe me. If I'm correct, Israel will not sacrifice itself in a war against Iran in order to save the world from the Iranian problem or the Iranian danger. Iran is a danger on the world, I would say, before it is a danger on Israel. The Iranians have submarines. The Iranians know already, and they tried already and succeeded already to launch missiles from submarines. The only thing which they need now is to put a nuclear warhead on one of these missiles, which can be launched from submarines. That minute, they will be able to control the world from under the seas, because they could implant those submarines wherever they like, even in Mexico Bay. So definitely they are a danger on the world before they are a danger on Israel. This is, according to my humble assessment, Israel will not act against Iran. Israel might ring the bell, might try to wake the world up, yet an all-out war against Iran. Iran is too far away from Israel. We don't have aircraft carriers in the Gulf. We don't have such big army to deal with 120 sites where the nuclear program is hidden under mountains, not under 10 meters, which can be penetrated by a bomb. They do it under mountains, from the valleys they dig to the side. Definitely a problem, yet I think that Israel will not attack Iran, and Iran will not attack Israel, at least not in the first stage of its war against the world. I couldn't phrase it better. Thank you. However, let me conclude with one last sentence, or two sentences. The first is, the culture in the Middle East gives peace only and solely to the invincible. Not to the one who seeks peace, not to the one who begs for peace, not to the one who crawls and licks the feet of others in order to have some peace, because those get kicked in the you know what, and they are being ousted from the club. The Middle East is a place, because of the history, because of the culture of the Middle East, only for the powerful one and for the invincible. The support which Israel receives from the states, from communities, from people, from individuals, is part of the invincibility of the state of Israel. I thank everyone who takes part in this support. Second remark, what you have tonight is the result of research which we in Bar-Ilan University conduct. I'm the director of a new center for the study of the Middle East and Islam, which will say the truth about the Middle East, which will name a spade, which will not be bought by Gulf money, unlike other institutions and universities and research centers, a center which will blow the whistle to wake the world up to see the situation, both in the Middle East and states like Europe and the United States of America as well. This Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam is based on professors who speak Arabic, like myself, Persian, like the head of the center who speaks Arabic as well, Turkish and other Middle Eastern languages, and we will not need translations because, as you know, too many cases, too many times, things get lost in translation. This Center for the Study of the Middle East and Islam is under formation. We look for somebody who will be willing to commemorate his father or grandfather on this center and to give the center the name. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.